Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image Program. The Unashamed Image Program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image Program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Welcome to the other side of the struggle. This is a podcast where we talk about trauma, how to heal it, and then how to take it and use it to unlock your mission and your potential, and to use it to live your very best dream life. When you're dealing with betrayal trauma, it can be hard to know how to heal it, how to stop the pain, and to know what your next steps are to take in your own life. And these are the questions that we try to answer here. Trauma has the ability to rob us of our joy and identity, which is why it's so miserable to experience. But with the right tools and with the right mindset, we can totally reclaim that joy and even use this trauma to strengthen ourselves, so that way trauma does not knock us off of our joy again. Living your dream life should be a non-negotiable, but trauma tends to try to negotiate that with you. And even though trauma is not something that we will completely ever be free of in our life, the pain is negotiable. This is why I created Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching and this podcast, is because I want my listeners, I want my clients to live, truly live free from the prison that trauma can put you in. I want you to live on the other side of the struggle. Okay, I want you to stop what you're doing right now for just a minute, and I really want you to hear me out. I want you to go right now to erinanderson.kartra.com/page/heart of gold. There you are going to find a free meditation just for you from me This meditation is amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about what it's going to give you. Okay? Number one, it's going to help boost your confidence. If you are dealing with trauma, then you are most likely dealing with a confidence issue as well. And it's something that you are really, really wanting back. Number two, it is going to help you find security in your situations in your life because it's going to help you gain a sense of self-love and some self-trust. The third thing this is going to give you is an ability to escape the trauma that you're experiencing right now, this very minute, and help you find peace and joy and love and a deep appreciation for you and your experiences. This is going to really help you reconnect with yourself. So, that is very, very, very important when you are dealing with healing from trauma. So, again, I'm going to tell you what that website is that you need to go to. erinanderson.kartra, KARTRA.com/page/heart of gold. Capital HEARTOF, capital GOLD. Go check out this meditation. Please claim it for yourself because it is 100% a gift from me to you to help you heal right now from trauma. All my love. Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. Guys, I'm so excited. We have Lark Dean Galley back with us. And if you guys have known a little bit about me and Lark, she's actually been a previous guest on this podcast before. And obviously, we totally love her. Like, Larkin and I go back a few years. Gosh, what is
Probably
it? Like
6 years, I'm going to say.
Six,
Yeah.
7 years easily. Yeah. We met at a common friend's house and, I've kind of followed her and she's followed me a little bit since then. And I've watched her just literally do this like amazing, honestly, like one heck of a roller coaster journey. It really has been. And still like watching her like land on her feet after the whole thing. Like it's been just a really inspiring story. And so I'm going to have her share a little bit of that with you guys today. And I think you guys will be as inspired as I am for sure. But also another really cool piece of this, if you guys want to meet Lark and if you guys want to meet me in person, we are both also going to be at the Rejuvenate U in March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2024 in Provo, Utah. And it's happening, guys. Like, I know, we're like so excited because the people that are coming are like all about like healing and missions and purposes and like, let's get you on a path to just absolute fantasticness. So without further ado, I'm going to let Lark tell you a little bit about her story.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. So I've been around for a while, let me say that. And so I have like a lot of experience. I feel like I've lived, 3 lifetimes and went through school, got my undergrad, got my master's, was into global logistics, was in sales for like 30 years. And I traveled all around the world, did all the things, had live-in nannies, and just really had my hair on fire because I thought that was my gift to the world. Was I was going to go out and make a big name for myself and be the very best in everything I did, and that was great. And so trying to juggle kids and my corporate career, and back in the day I had a Franklin planner and it was scheduled down to 15-minute increments. And I was very, it was a lot of stress, but I didn't know it. until back in 2011, I decided to be done with corporate. I left and went off and did my own work. And I didn't realize until I quit that I was keeping it all together with like band-aids and string. It was pretty high stress, right? I was like, I look back and I'm like, how did I even do that? I was crazy trying to do it all. Yeah. So, then I was an entrepreneur for several years. I had quite a bit of success. I inherited my father's trucking company when he died, and I streamlined that. So I was working 1 hour a week, and I was kind of bored at that point. So I became a business coach, and I was teaching other people, and life seemed to be good. I felt like, okay, now I found my path. I'm going to do business coaching and it'll be great. Well, in March 2019, my 19-year-old son took his life. And at that point, the whole foundation of my life it just crumbled. I didn't know how I could go on. My family didn't know how they could go on. Nothing that I had done up to that point mattered. All of my business success, everything that I had been focusing on, I pretty much shut it down. My heart was just shattered, and I didn't even care. So you think about the things that are so important to you, and at the end of the day, do they really matter? And if something were to be taken away, what is most critical in your life and what matters the most? And we got a really clear picture of that, what mattered and what didn't matter. And my husband and I, over the months, we had a frank talk about this, like that we both have our master's degrees. Those didn't matter. All the things that we'd accomplished in our work, that didn't matter. The fact that our son had taken his life and we had no clue that he was struggling, we both felt like colossal failures, and it was devastating. And I had to make some decisions about how in the world was I going to go forward, because I was at the lowest point. It was bad. So,
Yeah. Well, goodness, I'm a mom of 6 kids,
yeah.
and losing one of them is like my worst nightmare. Absolute worst nightmare. And I think even just the fact that, one of them could commit suicide, that's even been one of my, probably even a worse nightmare than them dying in a car crash or something like that, even though it's still horrible.
Suicide takes on a whole new component than just death. Death of a child is really hard. It's hard. It's not the natural progression of things, and it's very hard on a parent. But a suicide adds a whole new layer, because then it's like, it didn't have to happen. Why did it happen? Why wasn't I enough of a parent to be supportive? Why didn't I know? Why didn't I know my child was struggling? What was it that happened in his life that he felt he couldn't go on? And all of these unanswered questions, it just compounds the death even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've talked to my kids a lot about suicide prevention, and if you're struggling, I really want to help. Yes. And it's if I really try to watch that kind of stuff, but and I hear this kind of stuff from parents all the time that have lost a child to suicide, just that we didn't know, and there's no judgment on people like that, because sometimes I think people are really, really good at hiding what they're struggling with. You know what I mean?
And the other hard part is, a lot of the signs of suicide ideation are being teenagers, right? They kind of go to the same, right? A little bit of isolation or a little moodiness, things like that. And we really do need to have frank conversations with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. And, and I think one thing I tell people all the time, because my 16-year-old, when he was a newborn, everybody, oh, just wait till they're teenagers, all teenagers are terrible and blah, 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 blah. I'm loving the teenage years. They're fun. I love having my teen. He is so much fun. But I think a big thing is that conversational piece, when I see him doing things that are out of the normal, we bring him in and we just talk with him without like judgment, without shame, and like, you will do this, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's a conversation. Like, tell me
Yeah.
what's happening. Like, what's going on in your mind? Have you considered this? Like, and it's like that navigation kind of a thing. And I'm not saying like I'm a perfect parent or anything like that. No, I've definitely left scars on my kids. But it's like, what you're saying is like communicate. So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
Yeah.
How
And be
big?
open. And I like, that you have the dialogue because before my son died, I parented very differently. My husband's military and it was very strict and you will, and this and that, and you will toe the line and all of this. And now I'm like, hey, I have no control. I'm just your guide. I'm here to support you. I'm not your judge. I'm not going to dictate to you. Very different parenting.
Yeah, totally is. It totally is. And no, I get that. I totally get that. So here's the question though, like, this is a heavy hitting piece. This is hard. Like really, really gut
Really
wrenching
hard.
hard,
Yep.
really hard. But here you are, you're back on your feet. You're bigger than ever, and truly I say that because like I've watched you make this like trajectory and like
Multiple pivots.
yes,
Yeah.
like multiple pivots, multiple trajectories. And I admired you back then. And like now it's like, dang, Mark, like wow. So like what are some really major truths that you've learned to take out of the shame and the guilt that you've experienced out of your son's death?
Well, within just a couple days, I had to make a shift because what had happened 5 years prior to my son's suicide was that my father had died by suicide. And I went into a huge depression for 5 months. I don't remember anything during those 5 months. And I caught myself after my son's suicide, I caught myself slipping into that black hole and I could feel it. And I knew I had to make a decision because if I went into that black hole, I don't know that my husband and my other kids would have made it. Honestly, they needed support, and I feel like in some ways that my father's suicide kind of prepared me for what was coming with my son. And so I had to make some decisions fairly quickly. And the first thing that I realized was that I was not my children's savior. And I didn't realize I had been carrying this guilt, this, heavy burden around. And thinking as a parent, if my kids don't do what's right and they don't make good choices, then it's all on me and I failed. And I realized that I'm not their savior. I cannot save them. They already have a savior. And as soon as I let that responsibility go, it like this weight came off my shoulders. And I immediately realized, thank you, I can let that go. That was huge. Because how many parents are walking around thinking that they have to save their kids? And let me tell you this right now, good luck with that, because that's not true and you can't do it. So
no,
just let it go.
No.
The second thing I realized is that this situation was not about me as a parent. Was I a good parent? Was a bad parent? It's not about my son. What was his struggle? Why did he choose this? It had nothing to do with that. It was an opportunity for me to reach out and help other parents. And my goal was that if I could help one other parent not go through what my husband and I were going through, I will have changed the world, because it was devastating. I mean, we were completely in every possible way. I can't even tell you, if you've gone through something where you think, life is over, like it can't get much more worse than this. I'm like, losing a loved one to suicide, especially a child, it is devastating in every way, your psyche, everything. And so I then took this on as kind of my mission. Like, what can I do to look outside myself and help other people? The final thing that I did was I just realized that my son had his agency and I had to be respectful of that. And as much as I didn't like his choices, that was his choice. And I couldn't change that. We need to move forward and recognize what can I do differently as a parent, which I mentioned what I did, so that my other children don't make the same choice. And so those were the things. They were hard things.
Yeah. Well, okay, those are like some major points, because as you're talking, you could have taken this as a big betrayal, of your son.
And in some ways I thought that I was angry. I was angry with my son because by taking his life, he had completely devastated his father, my husband, right? My husband was a battle-hardened soldier. I had seen him cry twice in our 21 years that we had been married. And one of those was at his mom's funeral. So he was not into showing his emotions. And for 3 days straight, my husband cried. He couldn't cope. He couldn't get up off the floor. He was broken. And so I was angry with my son. And that's some things I had to work through. I had to work through the blame and the anger.
Yeah. Well, and this is a really interesting thing, because you mentioned 3 pieces here. I'm not their savior. It's not personal, and I need to honor his agency. Those are the same 3 things that I had to go through and learn, as I'm handling, my husband's betrayal, and also like my mom's betrayal of me, And now, like, I still have both of them in my life. My relationship is so much better, and I see them. I truly actually see them now, and I'm not in a like so quick to judge them.
Yeah. I think that's the piece, is like, we have got to lose judgment, because people who are in addictions, they're not doing it because, oh, let me hurt you, right? People are in addictions, whatever it is, whether it's socially acceptable or not, right?
Yeah.
We all have something we're addicted to, and we're doing it to fill a need.
Yes.
Some kind of pain or emptiness inside. And I can look at other people with so much more compassion now than I could before. instead of looking at someone who's maybe taken their life or who is an alcoholic or they've been using drugs or whatever their choice, they're a gamer or they are a shopaholic, they can't stop themselves. I feel a pain inside my heart for them, for the pain that they are going through,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a need to fill themselves with something.
Yeah.
What is their pain coming from? And that's the place that I try to come from.
Yeah, and and that's a major, major piece here. Because the thing is like even like every single relationship, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we got on and did this call, is that every relationship has some sort of betrayal, attached to it.
Well, we have
And
these
yeah.
expectations, all relationships, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where you need to learn and step back and say, in a relationship, is my expectation correct? Okay, if you're in a marital relationship, you have certain expectations, right? That you expect from your spouse. Fidelity would be a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if there's an expectation that we might have, and we're tying the way we react to our spouse. For example, if I said to my spouse, hey, hon, let's go to a movie this weekend. I'd really like to see this XYZ movie. And he's like, no, I don't want to go. Okay, I have to take a step back and think to myself, if I'm sad or if I react negatively, then I had an expectation and I expected him to feel that expectation regardless of what he wanted, right?
Right.
So I need to take a step back and say that's not honoring his agency. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
need to go see the movie with a girlfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just allow him to make his own decisions without that pressure. And we do this to our kids all the time.
Yes, we do.
So if a child comes home with a grade that's lower than what we think, then there's immediate judgment and the expectations. And so we can see the expectations that we have placed on others by our response to their actions.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true. And the thing is like I talk about this, in the seven pillars, that the adversary to intention is actually expectation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It totally is. And even like the example you mentioned before, like, in a marriage you can expect fidelity. You know, I would say you can totally intend for the fidelity. When you come to like, and I'm not saying that your spouse shouldn't be, faithful to you or anything like that. No, I am definitely she should be. But it's a whole different ball game when you're living in the expectation versus the intention. And so like, saying, I'm not going to be their savior. That's an intention. I'm not going to take this personally. That's an intention. And I'm going to honor this person's agency. That's an intention. And then all of a sudden you have like a clear path to make a decision. What is best for everyone?
Yeah.
Not just for me. What is best in this situation? Maybe it is to divorce. Maybe it is for this. But you can see it a lot clearer and say to yourself, maybe perhaps the divorce needs to happen because my spouse is truly not happy being married. And I don't want to make somebody stay in a marriage with me that doesn't want to be married,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or perhaps there's some other things going on. You can see things a lot clearer and make decisions based upon what you can see, right?
Exactly. It helps you take out all of the emotion from it and take a step back.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I love about this. And like again, just I'm not their savior. It's not personal. Honor the agency. You can even take that into a business relationship. And again, we were talking about like, business partners that go in and betray each other. Man, I have like heard all kinds of stories about that
Yeah.
particular
Exactly.
relationship, right?
Exactly.
And once you get this whole piece together, I'm not their savior. It is not personal because truly, you think about it, like people that go through and they burn their business partner, it's usually not a personal decision. It's because that business partner was in a major, major lack mentality and they were terrified of something.
Yeah.
And this was like the quickest, most easy decision that they could make. Right? That's usually the case.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually not a personal decision. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. It just means that it's not a personal decision and you don't need to react personally to this. And again, honor their agency. But when you completely honor somebody's agency in a business transaction, that also means they honor the consequences that are attached to that agency. It's still okay to be like, let's get the police involved on this one, right?
Let's separate, go separate ways. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like these three pieces are so key to healing any kind of betrayal from any kind of relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So love
exactly.
that. So when you find yourself, well, actually, let's go back for just a second. You talked about the relationship between you and your husband. How do you navigate and still navigate this with your husband, and how does this strengthen your relationship now?
So we all know marriage is hard, right? And
Yes.
but just if you have lost a child in a marriage, it it increases the chances of divorce by quite a bit, by like
Yeah.
30%. So, odds are already against you, and then just tack on another 30%. And the reason for that is that everything in the marriage that is hard is magnified. And you're dealing with two broken people that can't even cope with themselves, that are so dysfunctional in their own way. For them to show up in a marriage and be supportive of a spouse is almost too much to ask. It
Hmm.
is really difficult. And so you might think of this, some people that are listening, who've been through betrayal trauma. You've got two broken people here. How do you go forward? And so I had to fairly quickly on, and just because I say fairly quickly doesn't mean that it happened right away, and it doesn't mean that I didn't go in waves. That I said, okay, I recognize this, now we need to stop, and not to say that it didn't come back again. But the first thing is I recognized that we had to remove all blame. Like, blame is off the table. I can't blame my son for his death. I can't blame my husband for my son's death. I can't blame myself. I can't blame anybody out there for my son's death. He made a choice, and that's a choice, and there's no blame attached to it. Because as humans, we love to place blame. Because if we
Yeah,
have
we do.
somebody to blame, then they're carrying all the burden, right? And I don't have
Yeah.
to carry the burden. And so, like I said, just because I said it, it didn't mean that it happened all right away. It was a process. And
Hmm.
still, 4 years later, sometimes that things can crop up, and I'm like, no, that there's no blame. That just take it off the table. The second thing was that, with my husband and me, is we had to be very, very honest, and that wasn't the way it was for a long time, for many months. We were both just brokenhearted, trying to have this facade that, okay, we can make it, when in reality we were both broken inside, but we didn't want the other person to realize how broken we were, because then it would affect the other person, right? We were trying to be like outwardly strong. About 9 months after my son died, I finally, like, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I said to my husband, I'm like, we need to address our marriage, because I can no longer carry on like this. I said, this is what you're doing. You are going to work for 8 hours. You're coming home from work and you're on the couch for 8 hours, basically in a catatonic state. Like, he,
Hmm.
he could not function. I said, and then you go to bed and you're sleeping for 8 hours. Like, what kind of marriage is that for me? I I want out. This doesn't work. And at that point, he mentally woke up, and realized that, yes, that I was right. He was checking out as much as possible. And I can understand,
Hmm.
if you check out, you don't have to think about all the pain. But he also realized that I was serious. I wasn't going to stick around for that kind of behavior anymore. And at that point, we opened up and got really honest with each other. And we had a conversation about, how we were each struggling, how we felt so depressed, and that nothing mattered in our life. And what was interesting is that we both wanted to go to a deserted island and just sit down on the sand and have the sand cover us and just disappear. And so without that honesty, we would not have realized that both of us were experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
And from there, we could start to repair, right? As
Mhm.
we had very honest conversations. And over the next few months, we realized that we needed each other now more than ever. Like in order to survive, we needed to stay together because we were both so broken. And to go through an experience where the other person understands your pain and understands what you're going through, that's what we needed, was to have
Yeah.
that support. And that is kind of what has gotten through. Not to say that, there haven't been other times in the marriage since then where I'm just like, it is too much, I've got to go, right? But if we can reality check and say, can I work through this? Can we have an honest conversation? Is this for the best for us to be together? Can we support each other and help each other continue to cope through this loss?
Yeah. And I love that. I love that because, as you're saying, leaning into each other's pain, really understanding where the other person is coming from. And that gives you almost just kind of like a brand new foundation after your whole entire world has burned to the ground, you know? And I find that very same story actually, in my own relationship with my husband is as I was going through my healing journey, I realized, oh my gosh, my husband's dealing with this. He's dealing with this. He's dealing with this. And it gave me like a whole new perspective, like, oh my gosh, he's going through the exact same thing I am.
Mhm.
Exact same
Exactly.
stuff.
Mhm.
And it's like, so why is he looking at things he shouldn't be looking at, right? And as I got looking at that, and the statistics of this whole thing, men tend to draw within themselves, when they're they're suffering emotionally. Women tend to draw without when they're
Mhm.
suffering emotionally. And so what ends up happening is the guy kind of goes into like an addiction with pornography or gaming, or like your husband just totally just checking out of life completely, right? Women tend to kind of go into more of a control mode,
Yes.
like I'm going to control this, 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 so that way I stay protected, right? And we don't realize that actually what needs to happen is we the women need to find solace in themselves, the men need to find solace in the wife. And that's what ends up happening and then you're kind of talking about this kind of stuff too, when you get honest with each other, it helps you both find that foundation, helps you both move forward. And even in business relationships, sometimes that partner, he's like gone to Bermuda with, like $40,000, right, in his pocket. That's really frustrating, but it's still that piece of honesty that comes back and blesses our lives if we can really truly be honest with ourselves and not like taking the entirety of the blame, but just
Mhm.
being honest about what we would have done differently
Mhm.
had we been in
Exactly.
that situation, and what we can do differently now makes a giant, giant difference.
Yes.
So when you guys find yourself in the grief process now, what is the process you take yourself through so that you can experience what you need to and also come out the other side with peace, clarity, and perspective
Mhm.
with your next steps?
So this is what I have done, and keep in mind that's been over 4 years, so that makes a difference, right? Versus if it's like super fresh. Um, I allowed myself to show up every day as at my 100%, and that looked different every day. Some days it looked 100% looked like without pants on. Some days 100% looked like I just stayed in the house all day and I didn't leave and I didn't do anything, and I didn't do much, right?
Right.
Sometimes 100% meant being on an interview or writing my book, interacting with other people, going out to an activity. It took us a long time to want to go out in public and just to be around people. Our grief was so great that we didn't find much joy in anything for a long time.
Mm.
And it even felt like a betrayal to laugh again. It took a long time.
Oh, that's sad.
And the other thing I want to say, like this, the grief comes in waves. And people say that time heals all wounds. And I don't think that it heals wounds. I think it gives you better perspective.
Yeah.
And so my relationship with my son has carried on. It has continued to grow and develop despite his not being on the earth right now. He and I are very close. I feel him. I feel him helping me in what I feel is my mission and what I'm here to do and how I'm here to help give hope to other people. I feel him with me. And because of that, I am not as depressed. My husband doesn't feel that. He's not open to those things. And so I think that contributes to sometimes he gets more depressed about things than I do. And he's not as open. He can't talk about my son's suicide. I'm very open. I talk about it a lot. I do a lot of speaking about it. Like I said, I've written a book about it. And that has helped me in my healing. But I've had to allow him to be where he is and allow him not to speak about it. And he's had to allow me to speak about it. So we have to allow. And so now that it's been more than 4 years, the grief doesn't come as often. And like I said, I've developed this relationship with my son and that I do feel him there. And when I might feel lonely or I miss him, I just visualize him with me, giving me a hug, feeling his presence, and knowing that he's very proud of the things that I've been able to do to help other people.
And this piece about this here is that I did the exact same thing with my savior.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Almost every like if you replaced the word my son like with my savior, that's exactly what I had to do. Because sometimes it is really hard for people to understand what it is you're truly going through, even though they might be going through the same thing. It's still their perspective that
Right.
that they have to see it past, and they're really, really struggling to do that. And the thing is like, for me, I really, really had to lean into some kind of a relationship that loved me more than
Mm-hmm.
I could ever imagine.
Yes.
And that's completely and utterly what you're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this is like such a big piece to like I literally see so many like parallels between my
Mm-hmm.
story and your story and like the things that we've learned and the things that we have taken away from today. And so guys, like definitely come into this Rejuvenate You. You're going to be able to sit down and talk with Lark about healing. You get to sit down and talk with me about healing. Like this is literally everything about this entire event. It's all about like really anchoring in to healing for 3 whole days. Like it's gonna be like an oasis for crying out
Right.
loud, like a spiritual and mental oasis.
Yeah, I attended earlier this year, and I met two people that changed my life. So it only takes one person to like have a huge impact and change your life, and I met two. So I just uh, they're high vibe, wonderful women.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are they coming this round by any chance?
Um, for sure, one of them is. I'm not sure, but just the two people. I mean, it doesn't really matter who
Yes.
my two people were, but I think that we can all meet somebody there
Yeah.
that's change our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might even just be the person you're sitting next to.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So, um, what do you have for the people that come and do the
Well,
rejuvenate
if
with you?
you can just get this from my website, it's larkdeangalley.com. And there's a button there on the front homepage that says Life's Work. And this is what has energized me more in the last couple months than I would say anything else. Because I realized that I was very depressed in doing all the suicide prevention work. And my son came to me and said, "Mom, you got to stop. You are way too depressed." But I was like, "But this is my cross to bear. I have to like do all this." And he's like, "No, you need to talk to moms with younger kids. You need to help them build a foundation so that they can help their children." And that's when I took a few months and had to really figure out what it was. And I came across this tool, which now I'm giving away for free because it changed my life. And that tool was my life's work. What is my life's work? I'm here to help simplify other people's lives so they can do their life's work, which kind of sounds funny, but it's me. I love it. And it makes me so happy. If you think back to my trucking company that I simplified down so I was running it in 1 hour a week. I do that to people's lives. I'm like, just let me clean it up for you. I'll show you the blocks and we'll clean that all up.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
it makes
that.
me happy. So
Yes.
please,
Yes. And
free tool.
and we talked a little bit about this tool before, and this is actually something that I've come to see as well, in my life's mission and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like this is a big piece. Go grab that. Go
Yep.
totally grab that.
I think we run around our whole lives going, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get a personal insight, it's beautiful. I share this with other women and they start crying because they're like, I always knew this. And it just gives them validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know what our work is. We need to articulate it. We need the validation.
Yes, yes. And it's that piece to just help us anchor in and really go forward in our missions and purposes. Love it. That is so valuable. So valuable. So my code is Erin Guest 2024 RY, I believe.
I think it's RY 2024.
Is it RY 2024? I can't
yeah. Erin Guest RY 2020. No. You know what? You're gonna have to type it in because
we'll just type it in. It's in,
and it's all capitalized.
Yes, it is. It is, and I do have it somewhere on this computer.
Yeah, you can put it on
but it will be in the description. So if you guys want it, go grab it. There's the link to purchase your ticket. And the very cool piece about this too is for anybody that does come and get the tickets for the Rejuvenate You event, come see me, Lark, and any of the other guest speakers that are going to be there. The people that get my ticket are actually going to get to come spend 3 days at an Airbnb with me while we're at the event. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of a very nice little piece to this. And
they do have to use your code, otherwise they don't get it. And they get $10 off if they buy their ticket before the end of August.
So. Yes. And then, like I said, the prices do go up. And you still get a little bit more off too with using that code off of your ticket. So definitely go grab those. Be there. Come see us. Come hang out with us. You guys come get to know Lark and I for the next 7 years because you will benefit so much. I'm telling you. Telling you. So thanks so much, Lark, for being here with us today, sharing your story, sharing your insights. These are like anchors of truth, truly. And just totally enriched and fed today. So thank you so much for being here. And for the rest of you guys, we'll see you next week on the other side. Bye, everyone. Okay, my loves. Are you tired of feeling overwhelmed, like you have lost yourself in the trauma, and like you have to control everyone and their decisions all the time? If that is you, then I have a brand new freebie just for you to help you start to organize your life and your time to start reflecting more of what it is you truly want. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard clients and potential clients say that they just wish that they could find themselves again after the trauma, that the trauma is consuming their every thought and that they just cannot move past it, and that they're feeling super overwhelmed by life and their responsibilities, and that they just don't have time for themselves anymore. The aim with Organize for Healing is simply to help you simplify, get some answers, figure it out what it is that you truly do want. Start gaining the confidence in yourself and your decisions and discover yourself again. To get clear with who you are, have your own back, and become your own best friend. Because, my loves, when you truly, truly have those things, you are in true healing mode, and in a mode where trauma cannot disrupt you again. So, if you are ready to take some simple actions and simplify your life and to start getting back into play mode and start reclaiming your confidence, your desires, and your life and identity again, go grab my free PDF, Organize for Healing. It is in the link below in the descriptions. Go grab it, and I will see you on the other side. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna